let's look here at this upper limb. Let's look at the deep veins first. The deep veins are going to basically have the same names as their arteries that they accompany. So when we came down into this upper limb, we came out of the axillary artery into the brachial artery. It divided into the radius, lateral, and the ulnar artery medial. Going back to the heart, we've got a radial vein and an ulnar vein that join the brachial vein, that join the axillary vein, that runs into the subclavian vein, which is accompanying the subclavian artery. So the deep veins have the same names as the arteries that they accompany. So that makes it a lot easier. You know the arteries, you should know the veins. Same names. Now, the superficial veins, of course, have different names. And you can see here, in the lateral part of the forearm, there is a vein here called the cephalic vein. It runs all the way up the lateral aspect of the forearm, the lateral aspect of the arm, all the way up. And when it gets to here, it dips between the deltoid muscle and the pectoralis major muscle and goes deep and joins the axillary vein right up here. On the medial side of the forearm, we have a vein running up like this, the basilic vein, superficial vein, and you see it running up like this, on up, and it too is going to join the axillary vein. Also notice that there is a vein that connects the two superficial veins, typically. So this is cephalic, this is basilic. This vein right here that connects cephalic with basilic is the median cubital vein. This is commonly a vein that's stuck when blood is being drawn for some lab tests. You go to the lab, they put a tourniquet on your arm, the veins stand up, those superficial veins, and this is a common one that they will take blood from, the median cubital vein. Sometimes they take from the basilic, but if you got a nice cephalic vein, they might take it from that. They don't draw blood from deep veins. When you have blood drawn, that blood is usually being drawn from a superficial vein. All right, so that's that. Now, on the way back to the heart, though, after we get out of the subclavian vein, we've got to go through another short little vein before we get to here. Here was axillary vein, here's subclavian vein. But this little piece right is a brachiocephalic vein. Here's brachiocephalic veins. Here's the right one. Here's the left one. And both of them converge to form the superior vena cava. Brachiocephalic is this little piece right here. All right? So that's your upper limb. And since we're talking about limbs, let's go down and do the lower limb. Now again, we've got a deep venous system, we've got a superficial venous system. So the deep venous system is going to be like we explained in the upper limb. The veins accompany the arteries that have the same name. So if you know the arteries that we talked about on your list going down in the lower limb, the veins taking blood back toward the heart have the same names as the arteries they accompany. So for example, in the leg, we got the anterior tibial artery, the vein, posterior tibial vein, and the tibial vein. they converge to form the popliteal vein. Popliteal vein changes its name on the way up the thigh to femoral vein. And when the femoral vein gets above the inguinal ligament, it changes its name to external iliac. It's joined by the internal iliac to form the common iliac, and now we're in the inferior vena cava. So it's just the opposite of what we did coming down. Because coming down, we came to the iliac arteries, the femoral arteries, popliteal, and so forth and so forth. The superficial veins, though, don't run with arteries. So they're deep to the skin, obviously, but they're running in subcutaneous fat on the surface. They're above the muscles. They're in the subcutaneous fat. So if we look at the posterior leg, we'll see that there is a superficial vein back here called the small saphenous vein. Sometimes it's called the lesser saphenous vein. It's running up the posterior leg like this, like this, like this, and it's going to join the femoral just above the knee, right here. So it's plunging deep right here. On the anteromedial aspect of the leg, starting down here at the ankle, we've got this superficial vein that runs all the way up the leg, all the way up the anteromedial thigh, all the way up here, and up here it plunges deep and joins the femoral vein in the groin, just below the inguinal ligament right there. This is the greater saphenous vein, or great saphenous vein. So it's superficial. It's obviously deep to skin, but it's in the subcutaneous fatty layer deep to the skin, above the muscle, superficial to muscle. This is the vein that's commonly used as a donor vein for coronary artery bypass. Come down in the leg, they tie off a section above and below, take out a section of vein, and use that as a vein graft to form the bypass around a blockage in a coronary artery, for example. The reason you can do this is because this is an expendable vein, because you have other venous drainage out of the limb, not just this one. All right, so as we're coming back toward the heart, we were down in the lower extremities here. We've come above the inguinal ligament. As we came above the inguinal ligament, we were in the external iliac vein. It's joined by the internal iliac vein, which drains pelvic organs. They form the common iliac vein. And the two common iliac veins join to form the inferior vena cava. You see that there are a bunch of other veins that join the vena cava on the way up. The gonadal veins, right here. Now, interestingly, the right gonadal vein typically joins the inferior vena cava, but the left gonadal vein often empties into the left renal vein and thence into the inferior vena cava, just a little, variation. Here's the right renal vein, the left renal vein, and we're heading on up. Now, these stumps of vessels right here, we're going to come back to these later. But notice, these are hepatic veins. What is hepatic? What organ are we talking about?
Liver.
Liver. So these veins drain blood from the liver. Keep that in mind. These veins drain blood from the liver. Because in a little bit, we're going to show you a different kind of venous system from this systemic venous system we're looking at now. In fact, we can show you that now. This is one of the diagrams that you have that I handed you out. Now, we're obviously in the abdominal cavity here, aren't we? Mm-hmm. Here's diaphragm. stomach, liver, spleen. Small intestine's been taken out, pancreas is here, or the large intestine's been taken out, but we're looking at the digestive tract and the accessory digestive organs, as well as the spleen, which is not a digestive organ. But what I'm showing you here is a different venous system, because blood that drains away from the stomach, small intestine, large intestine, liver, gallbladder, and also the spleen passes directly to the liver first. The liver processes that blood and then drains its blood into the inferior vena cava. So this whole system that I'm showing you here is called the hepatic portal system. A portal system is a system of vessels that drain blood out of one circuit into another circuit. This is not the only portal system in the body. There's one associated with the hypothalamus and the pituitary, but this blood here that's draining the digestive organs, that's in the hepatic portal system. This blood eventually passes, of course it goes to the liver and comes out of the liver into the systemic venous circuit. So when we're in the inferior vena cava, we're in the systemic venous circuit. Same thing with the superior vena cava. So that's what a portal system is. So this is the hepatic portal system. Now you can see that there are many little tributaries into several large vessels. We don't need to know all the fine points of this, but we need to know the main tributaries to this one big vein right here. So you can see that draining into this one big vein right here are three sizable veins. This one, and this one. This is the splenic vein. This one is the inferior mesenteric vein. This one is the superior mesenteric vein. Remember that when we talked about the arteries to the abdominal viscera, we had arteries going to all of these organs. This is the system of veins that drains that blood back from those organs. So again, superior mesenteric vein, inferior mesenteric vein, splenic vein, all drain their blood into one single large vein going directly into the liver. That vein is the hepatic portal vein. That's this vein, hepatic portal vein. The liver processes that blood and drains the blood out of itself via these veins. There are usually maybe 4 or 5 coming out of the liver, going into the inferior vena cava. Now the reason that these are shaded in here is because they are embedded in the liver. So this one is the hepatic portal vein. These up here are hepatic veins. Be sure you understand the difference. So a while ago I showed you this. The liver's been taken out. These are the stumps of those hepatic veins that you see shaded in on this diagram right here. Hepatic veins, right up there. Now when we get to the digestive system, we're going to be talking about this again, but this is part of the venous system of the body, so we'll look at it now. All right, what about the head and neck? Well, this is a lateral view. We had a lateral view when we had the arteries. We're talking about the arteries. We've got a lateral view now, and this shows you major venous drainage from the head and neck. So, on your list, you'll see the internal jugular vein and the external jugular vein. All right, let's orient where we are here. Here's the subclavian vein. Here's the internal jugular vein. Where they join each other, at this point right here, is the beginning of the brachiocephalic vein, that little short segment of vein before we get to superior vena cava right here. Now, the external jugular vein is a little bit lateral to the internal jugular. So the external jugular vein is going to drain into the subclavian right here. Whereas the internal jugular vein is basically joining the subclavian, and where they join is the beginning of the brachiocephalic vein, which enters into superior vena cava. Now, as you can see here, the internal jugular vein is draining tissues of the head and neck, skin, subcutaneous tissue, muscles, and so forth, of the head and neck. But it's also draining, and you can see it sort of shaded in here, it's also draining some blood out from the cranial cavity. See the little shaded in area here? And that blood now is draining right down into this vein back to the heart. Whereas the external jugular vein is a superficial, it's draining skin and subcutaneous tissue and muscle of the head and neck, mostly posterior, like this. What I'm getting at is that the internal jugular vein, which is this one, is receiving blood that's draining away from the brain up here. So, we get a better look at that with this diagram right here. So here is our internal jugular vein. Here's our external. You can see that there's some drainage from the head and neck here into the internal jugular vein, but now showing in the muted color here is showing you some venous blood collecting channels that are draining blood away from the brain back to the heart via the internal jugular vein. So these spaces up here that you see are sinuses. They're a type of sinus. Sinus is a general word that just means a space. We have different kinds of sinuses in our bodies. For example, we have paranasal sinuses, frontal, maxillary, sigmoid, so forth. All right. What's in those sinuses? Mucus and air, right? These sinuses up here are called dural sinuses because they are formed by splitting off of the inner layer of the dura mater. Remember, the dura mater is the outermost covering of the brain. It has two layers. A layer that's plastered to bone called the periosteal layer, and an inner layer called the meningeal layer. Well, those layers at certain points split apart and form spaces. So you remember that between the two cerebral hemispheres there is a fissure that runs front to back, the longitudinal fissure. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And that inner layer of the dura mater dips down in that fissure, front to back, and seals off between here and here. So right here, that dura mater, as it comes up like this and starts down, it creates a space from front to back that's superior. Then it closes itself off, but at the bottom of the loop, it forms another space down here. This one up here is called the superior sagittal sinus. Superior because it's near the top, sagittal because it's in the midline. You know, a sagittal plane is in the midline, isn't it? All right, so this sinus here is filled with blood, venous blood. Now you can see that there are a number of little tributaries into this sinus. This sinus is a collecting point for blood from multiple tributaries. Arteries supply the brain with blood. That blood has to drain away from the brain. It drains through a number of small veins into these spaces. So this space right here, the superior sagittal sinus, is up high. It goes from front to back to right here, in the midline, deep to the occipital bone, right there. There's another one right here called the inferior sagittal sinus. It's like this one, but lower down. It's right, you know, sitting above the corpus callosum here. And it's shorter. So it doesn't go all the way to the back here. It does connect with the back in the midline through this sinus right here, which is called the straight sinus. So you see the inferior sagittal sinus drains into the straight sinus, which goes right back here and meets the superior sagittal sinus as it's coming down. So this place where the superior sagittal sinus meets the straight sinus is called the confluence of the sinuses. It's not labeled on your diagram. So I'm going to come around and show you where it is. All right? So you probably find it yourself, but I'm going to show you where it is on your diagram. It's going to be right there.
What is it called? Confluence?
Right here.
Oh, confluence.
Right here. Yes. Right there.
Confluence? Confluence and sinuses? Oh, sinuses. I'm recording the ceiling right now. You're going to do who? The ceiling. I was recording the ceiling in case it was important. Right there?
Mm-hmm. Right here.
In case that was important, you know. You had something to say or something. Oh, yeah. Oh. I'm ready to be not ready. Yeah, do you know this definition? Do you know this definition? Those ones right here? Oh. Yeah. It's still, this is like little markings.
All right. So, if we come this way, we come to the midline. If we come this way, we come to the midline. From that midline point, blood is going both ways, right and left. What we're seeing is the blood going the right-hand way through a transverse sinus. Transverse means this way, doesn't it? Transverse, parallel with the floor. So from that confluence, we go right to the right transverse sinus, or we could go left to the left transverse sinus. The transverse sinus takes a curve, kind of a lazy S curve, as the sigmoid sinus, and the sigmoid sinus empties into the internal jugular vein, and that blood travels on back toward the heart. So the two sides are the same, but in the midline, we've got the superior and inferior sagittal sinus and the straight sinus. Those are solitary, midline, single. But from the confluence, we've got right and left transverse leading into right and left sigmoid, leading into right and left internal jugular veins. Now, there are some other sinuses in here that you see labeled, but we just don't want you to learn the ones we put on the list there. For example, here's the cavernous sinus, which is draining blood from this part of the skull up here. All right, so that's the venous drainage, and we have covered all of the veins that are on your list, I believe. Okay, let's take us a break, and when we come back, maybe about 1:45 or so, we will go over these tracing exercises.